Second race of the day in Clio Cup Great Britain as we get ourselves ready for what was a thrilling race earlier on, and so what I assume will be a thrilling race here today as well. Of course, Liz McGlade ready to take you through the second race of the day, and we had that fair share of drama. Of course, if you didn't join us for the race earlier on, there was a pretty big swing in the championship. Of course, it was Ben Colburn who had a mistake at Coppice on the very last lap of the race, and it sent him into the gravel trap and cost him an awful lot of ground in the championship. It was an excellent victory though from Will Orton, of course, on debut this round. Of course, just jumping in now, he'll be starting from the rear of the field once more in this one, so we'll probably have to do very much the same work. He'll be stationary on the grid, there he is, as he'll be stationary on the grid for an extra 10 seconds, courtesy of being in a different class, so he'll be starting from 6th position on the grid, a little bit further away from everyone else, and then will be held for 10 seconds before being sent off to chase down the rest of the pack, which is always very exciting, to be perfectly honest. Certainly has the pace to do so. We'll be able to take a second victory of the weekend in the 20-minute race. Nicky Taylor was the driver who finished in second position in that one. Obviously closed down a fair amount when it comes to the championship, so that's always very exciting. It's building up to quite a crescendo here in Clio Cup Great Britain, but do remember again, there is still plenty of time left to go in this championship. We're here at Donington Park for the 4th weekend of 2024. We do have Alton Park and Brands Indy to deal with before we can crown ourselves a champion. The title was far, far, far too close to decide. They'll all work their way into the grid slots and get themselves ready for action once more. It will, of course, be Dara Flock starting from the pole position. Nicky Taylor starting from second. The likes behind will be staring at their potential challenge. As the green flag is waved, the lights will come on and that race down towards the first corner will once again begin. Can Nicky Taylor find their way through around the outside and take over the race lead by the time they get down into the first corner? Can Colburn do something special? Don't worry about the car being held on the grid at the moment. That is Will Orton, who's just been given the command to accelerate and is able now to join the race. Taylor will get to the outside as they head down into the first corner. Flock with the inside line. They work their way through. Big move coming in from the 46 to the outside. That is Jack Wright, but has to settle for maybe even dropping back behind Ben Colburn once again. There in the background works Will Orton through the first corner as they head now down through the crane of curves. It is Flock from Taylor, and I think it is still Colburn as they lock just ever so slightly going down into the old hairpin. Better run coming off the corner though from Wright as well, as Jenkins has dropped back a single position on the race start, now down into 5th. Up towards McLean's they're going to go. And this is where Taylor was able to find at least one way through. To be fair, the two of them switched over between Taylor and Flock, switched over so many times through the race. It was very hard to tell which corner they couldn't overtake at. They overtook at McLean's, they overtook at Coppice, they overtook probably not down in the old hairpin actually. So maybe that's on the order of the day. Onto the back stretch now, down into the fog at ES. The look to the inside comes in from Ben Colburn, championship leader, desperate to find some extra points after a disappointing first race of the day where they were much further down the order. Courtesy ended up finishing in 5th position after a time penalty in the previous race for Jack Wright. There's a look to the outside coming in though for Nick Taylor. Nicky Taylor trying to work their way through around the outside, still able to fend off Colburn. Little tap of the brakes from Jack Wright. Doesn't want to try and make it side by side, working down to the final corner as Ben Colburn's most certainly trying to make it side by side down to the final corner, but the advantage on the inside line will go the way of Taylor, as Flock's going to be leading by a few tenths of a second as they cross the line. The order we Flock from Taylor, from Colburn, from Wright, from Jenkins, and then from Orton, who closes in with a fastest second and a fastest third sector. Will Orton will absolutely close down on this field. There will be a 6-car fight for the race lead. It's just a matter of when. It's like he's playing a computer game, the way he speeds his way up to the rear end of the field. Bit of a defensive line coming down to the old hairpin from Dara Flock, and it should allow Nicky Taylor to get a little bit of a look, a little bit of a run coming up towards McLean's and maybe even towards Coppice as well. Waiting for them to get their way through the Starkey's curve. There is the look to the inside coming in from Nicky Taylor as they go through Schwantz, then McLean's, now up towards Coppice. The next corner, Colburn looks to the inside, can't find that way through. Defensive line comes in from Nicky Taylor, so probably it's going to be a little bit slower on the run down the Starkey straight towards the Fog ES, and so won't go on the attack of Dara Flock. Still got Wright just behind, finding any opportunity. The big slipstream, this is when they're in that headwind. It still is a bit of a headwind as it was this morning coming down into this corner. A little bit of a poor run coming in from Dara Flock. There was a few struggles earlier on in the day going through the Fog ES from Flock, and Nicky Taylor desperate to pounce on that one. Looks to the inside, gets covered off. Now is all over the place in the braking zone. The car was going one way, then the other, was able to catch it beautifully. Nicky Taylor might just lose a single position to Ben Colburn through all that, but to be fair, it could have been so much worse. Little bit of contact, pops the wing mirror in of Ben Colburn's car, so now doesn't have it on the passenger side, on the left-hand side of the car as they work their way through the the final corner and back out onto the start-finish straight. It is Flock leading from Taylor and from Colburn still. No position switches over that lap, despite how close and intense the racing was. You've got to love Clio racing action. As once again, fastest lap of the race comes in from Will Orton, a 1:46.975, able to close down by nearly 2 seconds, and in a second and a half really, on our race leader. It is still Flock leading from Taylor, from Colburn, then from Wright, then of course from Jenkins, and then Orton. Slow run up the hill from Wright, not a good exit, as there is going to be the move to the outside from Ben Jenkins. They work their way through the Starkey's curve, now towards Schwantz where they have the outside run, and then into McLean's. It'll be the inside part of McLean's that Jenkins will have to confirm 4th position. I do believe that one has now been completed. The top 3 in the championship battling 1st, 2nd and 3rd. There is confirmation from behind that Ben Jenkins has been able to get through into 4th position. Will Orton still closing in. Fastest first sector though comes in from Nicky Taylor in 2nd position, using all of that slipstream from Dara Flock as they head down into the Fog ES, onto the brakes, up and over the curb. How's the exit this time from Flock? Still poor, not quite getting the run through the Fog ES, either too overcommitted on entry or just not confident enough to get on the throttle as early as both Nicky Taylor and Ben Colburn. Look to the inside coming in from the championship leaders, still not able to work their way past Ben Colburn, settles for 3rd position at the moment. The top 3 not separated by very much. 5 minutes down in the race, 14 minutes and 40 seconds left to go. Still so much time, and they'll all be well aware in the car at the moment that they are going to be joined in this fight. Maybe by Wright again, maybe by Jenkins again, almost certainly by Will Orton. They are surely aware that that is the prospect that awaits them in that final portion of the race, that it's not just them fighting themselves, it'll be that. And do remember that Colburn and Orton did have a little bit of contact as they departed the final corner earlier on in the race. Just a little bit of a brush between them. Sorry, earlier on in the race, earlier on in the day, in the previous race is what I meant. It was where they just had a little bit of contact, but I think it was in the final third of the race, where they just brushed ever so slightly against each other. Still, the race lead in the hands of Dara Flock at the moment, but how long's that one going to last? There's that wider line that we've seen so many times throughout the race previous, and of course earlier on in this race from Dara Flock. It's almost, you know, taking that wider line, you're taking a little bit more speed through the corner. There is the switch for 5th position rather, as Will Orton is able to work their way up now into 5th place in the race, and you can see the grouping ahead. Big flash of lights. Wow, getting ready for British touring car racing there. Is Nicky Taylor there, flashing of the lights heavily, working down into the Fog ES, chucks it up and over the curb as they'll work now into the Melbourne hairpin. Defensive line comes in. Is there going to be the big send to the inside? There was a huge send earlier on in the day, going down into the final corner from Nicky Taylor. Is there going to be the opportunity this time by as they head down into that final turn at Goddard's? Seems as though Dara Flock's got the measure of Nicky Taylor at the moment. but could well be Nicky Taylor being a little bit patient. Saw a little zoom in there on that rear wheel as it locks up. You really get that going through that final turn as you're dropping down the hill. You're completely unweighted on the inside, and the inside wheel, the rear left, just completely lifts off the road. And obviously as you're balancing the brake going through there, that wheel then will be stationary. Now through Hollywood and the Craner curves once more, and it is still the top four separated by very little. Bit of a gap back to Will Orton. It was 1.4 seconds on the previous lap based on the lap times he's been setting. It's not coming down as much as we've seen in previous races. He has, though, just set the fastest first sector of the race by a couple of tenths of a second. So Will Orton is closing in, menacing in the background. Defensive from Nicky Taylor and attacking as well, trying to find some way past, but at the moment he has to worry more about the mirrors because Ben Colburn is coming through to the inside, going up towards Coppice, early on the brakes but still carrying the speed through the corner. Ben Colburn's committing to the move as they head through Coppice and out now onto the Starkey straight. Ben Colburn looking to regain some of that championship ground that he lost in the previous race, uses the slipstream from Dara Flock side by side in the background as Jenkins is going to push Nicky Taylor, using the bump drive to try and keep Nicky Taylor ahead, leaves it side by side just alongside Ben Colburn. Somehow they work their way through without making any major bits of contact through the fog ES, and here comes Will Orton to the inside of Ben Jenkins at the moment. Will he complete the move on the exit of the hairpin? The answer to the question is yes. Jenkins went out wide and relinquished the position, and so he's satisfied at the moment with 5th place. 4th goes the way of Will Orton. Oh, that was quite a dramatic bit there. You don't typically see side-by-side going into the fog ES like that, but they were definitely trying for that move. We're not even halfway through yet. 11 minutes ticked off in this race. No, 11 minutes, sorry, left to go in this race. 9 minutes ticked off in this race. As Dara Flock holds on to the race lead by 0.6 of a second. Then it's Taylor, then Colburn, then Orton, and then Jenkins, of course, with a little bit of a gap back to Jack Wright, who again is doing the first weekend of the year, I believe, in the Clio Cup Great Britain. Down the Craner curves they go as they throw the weight back over to the right-hand side of the car as they go for the left-hander. Now up through the right-hander of the old hairpin. Could be a switch here as Will Orton will be desperate to find a way through. Won the race earlier on in the day, would like to take 2 from 2. It's not easy to find an opportunity around Donington Park, certainly not against a heavy hitter like Ben Colburn. It says hi me on the side of the car. I think he's asking for something here as we head through Coppice. Again, looking for that opportunity as now, to be fair for Nicky Taylor, speaking of opportunities, could well be the best opportunity for Nicky Taylor for a little while in this race, because whilst there's no pressure on the rear end of that 17, that bright yellow car, this could be the best opportunity to work your way through. You've got the entire road ahead of you, but at the moment it is being blocked by Dara Flock in the number 22. The white and blue car to the outside. That lock up there is coming in. That's from the rear right wheel as they get onto the brakes. Will Orton has got through now into 3rd position with a move down into the Melbourne hairpin. So it is Flock from Taylor and now from Will Orton. But Ben Colburn's not satisfied with that. To the outside, he's going to go down into the final corner. Still sat at the rear of this is Jenkins. No opportunity for them to work their way into it, but certainly trying is Jenkins. The top 2 still separating themselves from the rest of the pack, but for how much longer? To the outside at turn 1 is going to go Nicky Taylor, trying the up and under as we work down towards Hollywood and the Craner curves. Has he been able to carry more speed out of the corner? Will Dara Flock be feeling the pressure as we work our way down the Craners? The answer to the question is no. Still a good drive. This is excellent defence from Dara Flock, basically by not defending, weirdly enough. It's kind of one of those ones, it feels like something that's so counterintuitive, where the best way to defend, well, the fastest way you're going around a circuit is on the racing line. So the best way to defend is basically sometimes by staying on it and knowing when to defend. There's no point in defending clean air because that's going to leave you open into the next corner. There was some defending there going down to McLean's and some big defending here coming up towards Coppice. Outside run comes in from Taylor. Might try the up and under again. Now they're joined by Will Orton in the fight for the race lead. 8 minutes left to go in this race. It's Flock, then from Taylor, from Orton, of course from Colburn, and then from Jennings with a bit of a gap back back now to Jack Wright. Now 2.2 seconds off the rear end of this 5-car train for the race lead. Slow again in the Fogger ES, and this time there is an overlap. Nicky Taylor's trying to work their way through. It was a slow and a bit of a struggle coming in from Dara Flock into the Fogger ES. Is there going to be a slow struggle going through the Melbourne hairpin? For Nicky Taylor, it is once again the race lead. Has led a few laps earlier on in the day in the previous race. Finally takes over the race lead from Dara Flock in this one, but it might not last long, as here comes Will Orton to the outside in the final corner. Side by side for the race lead. Orton goes around the outside of Flock, who goes from first back to third as we head out onto the Wheatcroft Straight. Nicky Taylor then takes over the race lead with 7 minutes left to go in this race. Can Flock find their way straight back through? Will Orton defends it coming down into T1. Up in the second position, Orton's going to go. Down to third goes Dara Flock. Still Colburn and Jennings at the rear end of this train. They head now into the Craner curves. And with Orton's pace, you've got to say, we'll probably be able to challenge Nicky Taylor at some point during this race, but I wouldn't say it's going to be too easy there. The previous couple of laps, sure, it's been very much advantage Orton, but if you actually look at the overall bests, it's certainly not shaping up quite as clear of a picture. As much as Will Orton is faster, it's not by that that margin of like over a second a lap where the move becomes relatively easy, as Colburn goes on the defence for what is currently 4th position. Again, at the moment, we'll be losing even more ground to Nicky Taylor in the championship. 2 championship rivals for Ben Colburn sat directly ahead. The number 22 of Dara Flock, the number 17 of Nicky Taylor. Those are the fights for position when it comes to not only this race, but for the championship as well. Is it a better run coming in, though, from Will Orton, who has no stake in this championship? Just trying to drive round and do their own thing. Clearly trying to advertise their own skills with the Hire Me on the side of the car as well. As they head out through the Melbourne hairpin, is still a fantastic fight for the race lead. 1 minute and 46 seconds generally the lap time around here. 5 minutes and 40 seconds left to go in the race. It will be tight, but should be 3 laps left to go in this race. I say it should be tight. It shouldn't be tight. I've done the maths. No, should be 3 laps to go. No, maybe it is tight. Who knows? We'll figure it out when we get around to the checkered flag a little bit later on in this race. Could be 3 laps though for these drivers to defend. I can tell you, people that aren't doing the maths, it's the drivers in the car. There's no way they are trying to figure it out. In fact, I've redone the maths. I think it's 4 laps left to go in this race. My goodness, never trust a commentator's maths. They're definitely not doing any of that in the car. They are just driving until they see the checkered flag. It's always the advice that you'll get. You'll see it around karting tracks with all the juniors working their way up. Read the flags and judge the race by it. You know, you're in the race, you see a yellow flag, you slow down. You see a checkered flag, that's the race over. Until that point, you keep going and you keep pushing. Every single time you hit a corner needs to be maximised. Will Orton knows that better than anyone really on this grid, as he sits on the rear end of Nicky Taylor going up through McLean's, out onto the back stretch. Starkey's down towards the Fogger ES, the 17 with a race lead at the moment. But will it last until the checkered flag? Will Dara Flock have anything to say about it? Will Ben Colburn or even Ben Jenkins have anything to say about it? They're currently running 4th and 5th positions. How was the run there through the Fogger ES? Nicky Taylor able to hang on, slightly defensive going down to the Melbourne hairpin, but not defensive enough. The inside look comes in. Will Orton sends it. Should be for the race lead, and Will Orton will take over said race lead. So Orton's flying at the moment. Is absolutely going to try and run away with this one as he can. Into the final corner they go. 3 laps left of this race. I've done the maths, it certainly is 3 laps left with 3 minutes and 40 seconds left to go on the clock. Will Orton with the race lead. Ben Colburn in 4th position, the championship leader. It's not really good enough. Desperately needs to get ahead of the 2 drivers ahead in Dara Flock and Nicky Taylor. Not only because, you know, as much as you've got the championship lead and that's all well and good, you just never really know what's going to happen when you go racing at Alton Park or Brands Indy. Alton Park's always a difficult circuit to properly judge. It's one of those ones that can break you as a driver, is Alton Park. It's such a narrow, such a tricky venue to go racing at, and I'm sure they'll be well aware of that. But again, in the hunt for the crown of 2024, you've got to make sure that you're scoring as many points now. There's no point in settling for 4th position if 2nd and 3rd are right there. And especially when 2nd and 3rd belong to your championship rivals as well. Not quite the side-by-side action thriller that we had in the first race. It's much more tactical and much more patient. Does not mean that we're not going to get some thrilling fights. I think part of it is because the winds really actually died down, especially on the start-finish straight. There's no major headwind going down into turn 1. Will Orton, though, certainly feeling the need to defend because Nicky Taylor's right on the rear end. The outside, Taylor's going to go. Can't tick it off, can't find the way through. Has to settle for behind Will Orton at the moment, who sits in the race lead by half a second. Onto the brakes, they'll go into the final turn for the penultimate lap. They're about to begin. 2 minutes left to go in the race, so most certainly there'll be two more. As there's no separation in the top 5, all separated by under 2 seconds. Must say it's sadly a boring drive for Jack Wright at the moment. Currently sat in 6th position. 8.2, I was just double checking, 8.3 seconds off the 5, the quintet up ahead. So it's basically just doing laps at Donington Park for the fun and the banter. Definitely won't be embroiled in this fight before we see the checkered flag, but they're all ready to pounce. And there's no waiting around here. There's no let's wait until the final lap and play the slipstream game, the tactical games. Absolutely none of that. They are on the limit of these cars, and they are desperately trying to find any way through it, any opportunity. There is no waiting around, certainly not at this point in the day, this point in the championship. With 60 seconds left to go on the clock, just over, we are about to head on to the final lap of this race, and Will Orton will continue to lead from Nicky Taylor, from Dara Flock, from Ben Colburn, from Ben Jenkins, and from Jack Wright. Look to the inside comes in from Dara Flock. Will it be a better run, though, going through the fog? Yes, this time by? No, it is not. Really quite a lot of struggles for Dara Flock through the fog. Yes, I'm sure they'll be well aware of that as they head into the Melbourne hairpin. Bit of a look to the inside, of course, from Jenkins trying to find their way past. As for 4th position, Ben Colburn could ill afford losing yet more ground in the championship, heading into the final couple of weekends of the season. We'll be racing in 2 weeks' time at Alton Park, so maybe it's just about long enough to forget any issues here at Donington. But as the circuits, you know, the 2 circuits that we've got left should be pretty cool, and you never really know what conditions you're going to get temperature-wise. So if you're struggling in the colder conditions, obviously the summer's over basically, which is where Ben Colburn took so many points, so many race victories, and maybe drives better in the heat. Certainly not driving well, as well rather, in the cold and windy conditions here today. I say cool and windy, I wouldn't say cold. You know what I mean. Time has ticked down to 0. Half a second between the race lead at the start-finish straight. That has most certainly grown. So whilst Dara Flock is on the rear end of Nicky Taylor, it is going to be Will Orton looking to settle a 2nd victory of the weekend. Big defence there as well from Ben Colburn. Jenkins is right on the rear end and could well be finding their way through and up into 4th position. It is going to have to be a defensive line coming in from Ben Colburn. And look at the speed advantage coming in from Ben Jenkins. Could there be more ground lost in this championship? I think with the Big Sen coming down to the fog, yes. Colburn was saying, I am not settling for 5th place, no thank you. Looks to the outside, comes in here for Dara Flock, trying to get through into 2nd position, but Nicky Taylor has the measure, hangs on to 2nd for now. One final corner left to go in this race. Can Nicky Taylor hang on to 2nd position, or will Dara Flock be able to find their way through? You can make it stick at the final corner with the Big Sen, and that's exactly what Dara Flock's trying. To the outside he's going to go, not going to be enough. Out through the final turn, it's going to be a victory for Will Orton. Nicky Taylor flashing the lights across the line, just about takes 2nd place as they're separated by just 0.2 of a second across the line. Then it's Dara Flock who set the fastest lap of the race a few laps ago with a 46.027. It's a couple of hundredths faster than Will Orton, and then Ben Colburn, Ben Jenkins and Jack Wright rounding out the field. But what a weekend it's been for this driver here. Of course, Will Orton came into it because of a different class, has to start from the rear of the field in both of the races, and was also given a slight hold longer than everyone else, but alas was still able to put that to one side and work his way through to take the race victory for the second consecutive race and sweeps Donington Park. Absolutely incredible driving from Will Orton. But for the championship, Taylor taking second spot. That's going to be a big one. I did say coming into this round, this is into the weekend, not into this race, but into the weekend. Ben Colburn had 278 points. Dara Flock had 258. Nicky Taylor had 252. I think in all aspects on that, they are most certainly closer, especially with Ben Colburn having his issues in the previous race, dropping it out in the gravel trap on the exit of Coppice very late on in the day. Nicky Taylor able to take second place in both the races this weekend. Of course, you can see the driver who won both the races, both victories, going the way of Will Orton. Again, superb talent. We'll take a look though at the provisional results from the second race of the Clio Cup Great Britain, and of course it will be Will Orton at the top by 1.2 seconds over Nicky Taylor after what was an absolutely fantastic drive. Again, just basically seemed to dominate with things. There we go, we can see the provisional results. And you can see Dara Flock there, third position, but also grabbing the fastest lap of the race by a couple of hundredths of a second. Ben Colburn will be disappointed with how the weekend's worked out there, with a 5th place in the first race and a 4th place in the second race. Ben Jenkins there in 5th position, and Wright there, of course, at the rear of the field. Big shame for Wright, finishing 10 seconds behind Jenkins after a bit of a troubled and turbulent time in the second race. Wow, what an exciting weekend it was, and great to see Will Orton out in Clio Cup Great Britain, having taken another victory this weekend. We'll have to wait and see who's going to be there on the 28th of September when we go racing at Alton Park for the penultimate round of Clio Cup Great Britain. We'll see you there, and we'll see who will become the champion.